We're recording this for anyone who wasn't able to make the call this week. And I'm going to talk about creating opportunities for authentic language use. So it's estimated, and we had talked about this before a couple weeks ago, but it's estimated that at least 1,000 hours of practice are needed to reach intermediate English proficiency. And so if our learners are attending class only 2 hours a week, think about this. How many weeks, how many years will it take for them to learn English? So if it's 2 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, what do you guys think? How long is that going to take?
I can say, ma'am.
What did you say? Oh,
I can.
yeah.
I can tell you. It is my opinions. If we give daily 1 hour, within a 6 month, we can start to learn a conversation. We can't be perfect. Everyday practice can make us perfect.
Exactly.
But for 6 months, at least we should learn every day for 1 hour to for English language.
Yes, yeah, it is much better to do it every day.
Yeah.
And I saw Jen had that answer. It would take at least 10 years if you're only doing 2 hours a week. And it actually, probably if you're doing 2 hours a week, it might even take longer because they tend to forget if they're not practicing every day in between. So because of this, we want to compel our learners to speak English outside the class as much as possible. Even if we are meeting every day for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, they still need to be working outside of the class. And we also want to make sure that the language we're using inside the class is as helpful as possible, that it's the real kind of language that they're going to use. And I may have shared this story with some of you before, but I'm passionate about this because when I was in junior high school, I think it was 7th grade, I started studying Spanish. And I studied Spanish through 7th grade, 8th grade, and 4 years of high school. And I was taking advanced placement Spanish. And so I studied Spanish for 6 years. And all we ever really did was we conjugated verbs and we took tests. So I got really good at that. I was very good at conjugating verbs. You can tell me any verb in Spanish and I'll go, hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, hablan. But we never practiced it. We never learned any real language. And so when I got to university, they gave me a placement test to see what my level of English was. And of course, because I was really good at taking tests, I got like a perfect score on that test. And so they put me in a 500 level class, which was a graduate course in Spanish literature for native speakers. So everyone in the class was an exchange student from Spain or Latin America, except me. I was the only American in the class. And the professor talked so fast, and all my classmates talked so fast. And I did not understand anything that was going on during that class. It was so frustrating, and I couldn't believe it because I had studied Spanish for so many years, but I had never had that practice in authentic conversation. So I ended up getting a very bad grade in that class. And because of that, the university would not let me take any more classes because my test score was so high, I couldn't take lower classes. And because I had gotten a bad grade, I couldn't take any higher classes. So that was the end of my Spanish studies until I started working with Spanish speaking people and got to practice it. And then I got pretty good again. So that's part of the reason that I feel so strongly about this. Now, in the classroom, we want to ask our students what kind of situations they communicate in, or they would like to communicate in. So for students who are studying English as a foreign language, perhaps they're planning to travel to an English-speaking country, and they need to know, asking about, hotels and airline tickets. For students who are already living in an English-speaking country, they may need to talk to doctors at their doctor's appointments, or teachers at their children's school, or their boss at work. And so if we can find out those sort of situations, we can customize the lessons and give them the vocabulary they need for that. We also want to strive for spontaneous and real conversations whenever possible. So as we are modeling our practice during this course, we're kind of following the slides, and we're following model, repeat, solo, and that's great to get us started. But as soon as students are able to start making real conversations, we want to go with that. Don't worry about interrupting the lesson when your student tells you, oh, I almost had a car accident on the way to class today. Here's what happened. And they want to talk about that in English. That's more important than your grammar lesson for today. So go with those spontaneous conversations and get them talking about real things that are important. We can also use role plays, like sometimes after the Bible story, we'll do a role play, and I'll say, okay, I'm the Pharaoh and you're Moses and you tell me to let your people go, and I'll say no. And we can kind of get them to ad lib and think about that. We do want to decrease teacher talking time, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm talking too much, and I have all of you guys on mute. That is not a good way to be teaching. We want the opposite. We want the students to be talking and the teacher to be quiet more of the time. And also, if we can introduce any practical activities, like here's how to fill out a job application, here's how to make a fruit smoothie. As we go through those steps and just talk about them in English, and they can see the actions and how that language is being used, that's going to be very helpful for them. Can you guys think of any other ways that within your classroom you can make opportunities for authentic language use?
My student that I'm practicing with, sometimes when he asks a question or clarification, that leads to another conversation. And I think as a teacher, like you said, Melina, just letting that be okay with that. It's okay if you take a few moments to have a conversation about something else in the middle of the lesson, especially, one-on-one, when you're teaching just one student. That's one of the ways I've been able to, while I'm practicing, have more authentic conversations and not worry so much about, oh my goodness, am I going to get through this lesson? Eventually I will.
Yeah, absolutely. And since our ultimate goal is that they will be able to have conversations, if we're getting to that sooner, that's always great. Now, I wanted to give an example of a common role play. So for my students in the United States, one of the scary things they would tell me about is they would feel really nervous when they went to the store and they had to talk to the cashier at the grocery store or whatever store they were checking out, because there would be a lot of words spoken very quickly, and they weren't always sure how to respond. And so often when they would go to check out, the cashier would say, paper or plastic, credit or debit? Do you want a printed receipt? Do you have a rewards card? Would you like to sign up today and save 20%? And they would just be like, what? I want to buy something. Like, they wouldn't even have the language. And so we started practicing this, so at least they could recognize some of these words and know what was expected of them in those situations. Because when the language was coming at them so quickly, it was very stressful and confusing. And so we do things like that. We also do a lot of role plays with like just making phone calls. Phone calls are very difficult in a new language. So these are some ideas that I've had. I give real conversation homework to my students, but because I live in an English-speaking country, it's a little bit easier for them to find English speakers than it might be in the context where you're teaching. One thing we did that was really fun was, because I taught in companies, in manufacturing plants, they often had a suggestion box for employee suggestions. So we would write up suggestions for improvement, and sometimes they could win a $50 prize if the company used their suggestions. So that became a really popular activity. A lot of our students actually made money for writing suggestions to improve things. Other things I would have them do is go out and introduce yourself to 2 of your neighbors on your block. Find out their names and how long they've lived there. Give compliments to 3 people and ask a follow-up question. So it could just be something like, I like your shoes. Where did you buy them? Or, you know, oh, your baby is so cute. How old is he? What's his name? So getting them just to make small talk with people. Asking coworkers what they did last weekend and then share what you did. We could rehearse that ahead of time. You know, I went to a movie. It was very good. What did you do this weekend? So we practice it in class, and then they do it for real outside of class. Talk to a friend about the weather and videotape it or record it. Talk to the librarian about getting a library card or borrowing a laptop, filling out customer surveys. A lot of times you can get a prize or like a discount if you fill out a survey. Going to the shopping mall and have them ask questions and follow directions. So giving them a list of activities to do at the mall. You know, ask for a free sample of ice cream. Ask if they have these shoes in color red, size 8. You know, just things like that, getting them to get over their fear of talking to people. Calling businesses or local offices and asking questions. So all of those were real conversation homework that they could do in addition to just the regular routine stuff. So what about you guys in your situations? How can you get your students talking outside of the class to other, hopefully to native English speakers, or just to other people who speak a little English that live near them? Patricia?
Hello.
Something came to my mind. We can help them broaden or increase their vocabulary by teaching them some different ways to, for example, to say thank you. So they can say thank you. They can say thanks, or that's okay, no problem. So, and have them use not only thank you, but all the other ways, because when people on the streets or supermarket, whatever, people usually use not only thank you, but they use many other words or expressions. And you not only say you're welcome, you say many other things. I mean, there's a way to help them increase their vocabulary, and then we can have them use them in class and outside the class. So if they usually go to church or whatever, they can bring to class situations, describe something they did the week before or in the church, work, describe a situation. It can be something.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, because they will hear such variations. And that's one of the problems, like when we're just sticking to the script of the conversations that are written in the curriculum, we always say, how are you? I am fine. But in real life, people don't always talk like that. They say, hey, how's it going? What's up? Not much. There's so many options. And so, yes, teaching them those different ways that things can be said. Yeah, and even getting them to do a show and tell can be fun, bringing in something, here's a flower I grew in my garden, and just getting them to talk about that object or a photograph for a few minutes. And
I was thinking we could also, for my students who are in a Spanish speaking country where it's harder to find English speakers, I think, your idea of going to a mall or a business, they could go to a hotel where a lot of international people or English speakers might be. And then my student, we were talking about catching an airplane and they could go to the airport if they had an airport close by and, and maybe talk to people or say, and nothing else, at least listen to some of the English, but I think, having conversations or asking questions of people there, that's another way for them to go and hear English being spoken when they're not living in an English speaking country.
Yeah. Great. That's a great idea.
Yeah. My poor student, to understand catch an airplane, that's one of those phrases like catch an airplane. And we described catching and how you don't really catch an airplane, but what it means is to go get on the airplane.
Yeah. There's so many funny things in English and we don't even think about them till our students ask about it. And then we're like, yeah, that is weird. I don't know why we say that. And
So,
Pastor Matthew, yeah, did you have one?
Actually, my experience, I told to my students, when you go to the market, try to, what you want to buy, try to say in your mind in English. If you do not know the vocabulary, you write down in Punjabi, your own language, then come on to me, I will tell you what is the meaning of that things, what you are thinking. And things, suppose you're going, in Punjabi is thinking, main ja raha hu, I'm going. Try to, remind in your mind, what are you doing? I'm walking. Try to speak in your mind, walking. So the first things I told to my students, what I learned, because when I was in the Bible college, I never knew what is the meaning of how are you. So the things first, how I learned the English, my experience, you try to, think in English. Whatever you're doing, you're walking, you're eating, you're sleeping, even you do not know the exact vocabulary, you can ask someone, ask question somebody, brother, how to say this, what we call this mobile phone, just cell phone, what is this headphone, like, what we do not know, we should ask to someone. They were just saying in Punjabi, if you don't know anything, you can ask the wall. Wall means somebody is standing aside who do not know you can ask them. So two things are there. We have eyes and we have tongue. If we use both of them, we will not fail. We will not fail. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great.